Hi, friends. Welcome back to the library, or welcome to the library. I have with me today Miss Christine, or as some of you may know her, author C.W. Rose. I'm super excited to be talking to you. You're a little new to me, but we're going to get all the information. So tell us, first, hello.
Hi, Natalie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy that we got to connect finally.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your writing journey and how you got started.
So I like to always say that, and you know how some actors say acting chose me. I feel the same about writing. I feel like writing chose me. It's just I can't remember a specific time where I sat down and I thought, okay, this is the moment. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be an author. I never really had that moment. I do remember, excuse me, since I was young, always being a reader and always. Sorry, one moment. I am so sorry. My throat has been acting up the past few days. So, anyway, so yeah, so I remember being a kid and just reading everything. I would sit down, I would read the backs of ketchup bottles, I would read like every last word on a sign, and I would just read every single thing that the person sent me because I enjoyed it. Um, I then wrote my first quote unquote book when I was 8 years old, and I was in the third grade, and it was a picture book about fishes. And I don't recall writing after that until I want to say about 12 years old when I started with Disney fan fiction.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was a Little Mermaid fan fiction, which I guess lends pretty well to my upcoming debut. And yeah, and then I wrote my first novella when I was 16, and my first novel shortly after that.
So
Yeah,
you said you have an upcoming debut, or have you already published? Is there a.
yeah. So I do. My my debut is coming out August 27th. So pretty much
Woo!
almost a month from today. We just opened pre-orders, so I am super duper excited for ebooks. And it is called Oceansong. It's an adult contemporary romantasy, and it's an Asian Little Mermaid meets Romeo and Juliet, but set in the
Oh,
grittiness of the real world.
that is quite the mix. So, where do you find your inspiration for stories or for characters?
So for characters, I like to say that there's a bit of everyone I've ever known in my life in each of my characters, and I think I've known a lot of people. I'm a physical therapist in my day job. I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked for a lot of people, and I've met like a ton of different personalities, which is great, because sometimes I feel like I take a little bit of people into my characters. I'm like, well, this
Yes.
person had an interesting story, or this person had an interesting character trait, or this person had a not so good character trait. I could put that into my villain, right?
Yeah.
So my villain
Okay.
character is a conglomeration of some men that I used to know in my past.
Okay.
So as far as inspiration, I find inspiration everywhere. And I know this sounds
Yeah.
like a cop out answer. I found inspiration just sitting in the car, staring out in the woods. I found inspiration for Oceansong when I was on a cruise vacation with my family, and I was standing
Oh.
on a balcony, waiting for my mom to get ready, as I normally am. And I was looking out into the waves, and I saw the waves churning and rolling, and it was like dark. I'm like, and I sat there and I wonder, I'm like, what would happen if I were to put on my diving gear? I'm also a certified scuba diver. I'm like, what would happen if I put my diving gear and I dove into the ocean right now? I'm like, what would I find? What would be under the sea? How deep is it?
Mm.
And then, of course, as I have this on vacation, my mind starts to wander, and I'm like, what if there's mermaids? What if those mermaids have lived among us all this time and we never knew? All right, what have they been hiding from us? And like to say from there, Ocean Song was born.
That sounds like fun, though. Like, I like how that's how you were in a place of vacation and relaxation, and that's how you came up with your book, your story.
I feel like that's what usually happens.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like the fact that you were like in one of those, I want to say peaceful moments, like yeah, you were waiting on your mom, but it's one of those like almost serenity when you go to, and people who really take a moment to enjoy nature when they're sitting somewhere or they're looking
Yeah.
at something, they feel this, I feel like the most, because a lot of people I feel like maybe take it for granted or just don't realize how quickly we like glance at something and then just kind of discredit it. But nature in itself, like the ocean, you know, we've only explored a small fraction of it.
Exactly.
And it's so vast in so many different ways. And it's just one of those, like, looking at it gives you this, not necessarily a trepidation, but there's a serenity to it. And then there's this underlying of like curiosity, but also a little bit of the fear, because it's like, you know, there's so much unknown. Whereas like when you're on land, you know, we know what a tree looks like when it takes root, because scientists are able to dig and see that. And we know how the house foundation is laid. We know, you know, the size of ants and the smaller organisms and things like that. And it's just one of those, like, you know, it's these things are palpable, like grass. Grass looks so small to us, but if we were an ant's size, it would look huge. It would be so huge and heavy, and the only way for us to get a piece of that is to be looking at the ocean.
And I love that, and I love that perspective you have. You know, it's like, yes, it looks small to us, but if you were something else, it could look bigger, right? And I do try to lean into that in Oceansong. I'm like, okay, you know, the merfolk may see humans one way, but humans see merfolk another way. But both sides see themselves as right, because they get into war. So both sides see themselves as, oh, I'm right, and the merfolk, oh, well, I'm right. Right, you know, so a big part of it is the merfolk believe they're protecting the sea from the humans, whereas the humans are like, well, my village is starving. You know, you're taking our fish from us. You know, therefore you're evil, and you're nothing more than no good fish.
Yeah. There's always a balance. There's always a balance that needs to be found, because even in normal society, it's a similar thing. It's like, you know, there is one specific fish that makes its eggs that are considered caviar. It comes from one fish. It's not any eggs from any fish. It's one specific one. But the thing is they can only kill this fish so many times. Because, you know, it has maybe hundreds of thousands of eggs, but there are only so many of them in the ocean. And if you start killing too many of them, then you run into this delicacy no longer becomes a delicacy in our minds because it's readily available. And then it's like, oh, well, it's common. Whereas caviar is something that is supposed to be like, you know, one of the highest of delicacies and extremely expensive because it is rare. And it's like one of those, that balance of, maybe not caviar, but for example, tuna or something. Exactly. You know, a lot of people have to eat tuna for their dietary restrictions, or just in general, they like to eat tuna. And it's like, you have to leave so many there so that they can breed. But at the same time, you know, you want to be able to pull and kill so many so that we can eat them, those kind of things, because unknown to others, a solitary only red meat diet is not great for some people.
It is not. I think that's why one was told to eat balanced, right? So eat fruits, eat vegetables, eat your meat, you know, but don't eat all red meat, because red meat does cause issues if you don't eat enough fiber to digest it properly. Yeah. Right. So, you know, red meat is good. Like I love a good steak.
Yes.
I try not to eat it too often, but I do like a good steak every now and then.
I feel like that's that piece of balance comes in a lot of places with, especially stories. Like when you're looking at trying to write a villain that is both, you know, villain enough to do the things that you need them to accomplish, but also not so villain that they're not equally loved as some of your other characters. Because there are certain aspects of like, okay, we need the villain to be, you know, morally gray or whatever is considered morally black, where they will absolutely do whatever is necessary, but they still have a special like soft spot for one person or a couple of people. But at the same time, like, you don't want to make them so unlovable as is depicted by most modern movies and TVs, that they don't have some sort of fan, especially in a story, because what happens is I feel like most of the morally gray or morally black end up being why people pick up certain stories.
I completely agree with what you're saying. And while I love a good villain, I love a good villain that I love to hate. But I do
Yes.
want them to be, I don't want to say relatable, but they have to have some kind of redeeming quality, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think what makes a good villain, as if you look at villains in real life, right, is that they truly believe that they're right. What they're doing is for the
Mm-hmm.
better of their family, for the better of their people. And I know that my villain is universally hated. I've gotten a lot of anger. I've got a lot of DMs. They're like, I really hate this guy. But I'm like, yeah, he's a jerk and he's very mean, but on the flip side, I try to make him, like he's a nice family man. He loves his daughter, he loves his wife, he loves
Mm-hmm.
his family. But on the flip side, he also treats the main character like crap, and he does not like the
Yeah.
mayor. He's very open about it.
I mean, rightfully so. We need to be, again, the balance.
Exactly.
It's like the idea of yin and yang and going back and forth, and you have fire and water and that kind of thing, like being able to merge but not completely exsanguinate
Hmm.
one or the other.
Yeah, because whenever I feel like I see a villain that comes down to like I'm gonna take over the world and kill everybody, my first question is like, why? Like, is it
Mm-hmm.
just because you want to? Is it just because you need a reason? Is it just because that you're just a villain? You need a reason to be bad? But like, what's the
Yeah.
reason? Are you trying to save your family? Are you trying to save your hometown, from your homeland or home planet from being destroyed? Like, what's the reason? It's like give us a good reason, and then and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's what makes a compelling villain.
Okay, so on the flip side, when you're looking at not necessarily a hero, but or maybe a heroine or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be, anyone who we talked about your villains, but everyone else in the story, what are some of those qualities that are like a not necessarily a non-negotiable, but what makes someone well-rounded to you? Like in your stories, do they have to have certain aspects, or do you really like each person as their own? Because I mean, there are a lot of
Hmm.
commonalities in humans as well.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, and I feel like I just like characters that are well-rounded, right? And I feel
Hmm.
like they have to have the good. Everyone has flaws, even when it's a main character. Like I don't typically like Mary Sue characters. Like heroes or heroines who are just amazing in everything they do, and they have no flaws. And it's like that's fun to read once in a while, but I do like them to have like some flaws, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe like my protagonist in Oceansong, she is, she's assertive, she's brave, but on the flip side, people can see her as being a little bit prickly, and sometimes I feel like she could come off as unlikable sometimes because she does stand up for herself, and sometimes she is very like, you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for? She can be like a little bit, I don't care what you think, this is what I'm going to do, but she has her reasons,
Hmm.
right? She's been hurt in the
Yeah.
past. It is made clear in the story that she's been hurt in the past. She's lost her mom. She's dated men before that have not treated her well, so she is very, very guarded. Oh,
Yeah. Rightfully so. There are so many of us that are that
I definitely
way.
am. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So tell us about your favorite versus least favorite tropes as far as to write, and then are they the same for reading?
Ooh, okay. So I could definitely say for reading. So my reading and writing tropes are a little bit different. So I really enjoy writing like forbidden romance and enemies to lovers. I really, really like that. And um and I feel like I'm a lot pickier with that in terms of reading. But in
Hmm.
reading, I really like second chance romance. I like childhood friends to lovers, and I really love same enemies to lovers also in reading. But like I'm a little bit pickier with that because I want them to be like true enemies to lovers, not just rivals. If it
Yeah.
is billed as enemies to lovers, like I want them to have a reason to really truly be enemies. Like they really hate each other, their sides are at war, something like that, versus like just being
Hmm.
workplace rivals, which is great if it's a rivals to lovers romance.
Yeah.
What else? My least favorite trope, and I think it's because I can't relate to this personally, is probably accidental pregnancy. I
Hmm.
know it's very popular in romance novels. And yes, when it happens, I'm very happy for the characters, but I'm like, I really just can't relate to this because I don't have children
Yeah.
of my own. Right, so and I don't have any nieces and nephews just yet. Um, so I would have to say those, and I think those are the same in my reading and my writing. Although I feel like I could tolerate that a little more in reading.
Yeah. I have to agree on the accidental pregnancy. Like
Hmm.
it's not that I can't read it. or that I won't. But it is a little bit harder for me to kind of resonate with because I don't have
Right.
kids, you know? Um, and it's just one of those, like, there are a lot of people who don't or can't,
Exactly.
or just choose not to. And so there's, I mean, there's always going to be turmoil over this because a lot of people don't like the surprise option.
Yes.
That's fine. It is what it is. And more recently, I actually saw on threads where some readers were getting angry because they felt like every single epilogue or happily ever after ended with some version of the couple having kids. And
Hmm.
they were like, where are the stories that are a little bit more realistic for those of us who choose not to or who can't? Or maybe just, those of us who weren't quite ready, aren't ready to go that far yet. Because there are some instances like, um, plenty of my friends were married for a few years before they decided they actually did want to start trying to have a kid. And then I've got, a cousin who ended up having a kid within the first 6 months of their marriage. So it's just one of those, like, everyone's taste is a little bit different, but there were some people that were like, those authors who are highly popular, the most talked about, typically end up being the ones that have those. Almost every happily ever after ends in some version of having children. Um,
Yeah.
and so it can be hard to stomach. And it's like, I understand it's a romance, but at the same time, it can be a romance without what would be considered the nuclear, family.
Yeah, and I feel like, and just kind of bouncing off what you said, I feel like the whole happily ever after ending discourse has kind of been running rampant in threads. I've been realizing that, and
Yes.
and I want to say that even as a romance reader, as a romance writer, it's like a happily ever after can take any form, right? And I feel like it doesn't have to include
Mm-hmm.
kids, but if it does include kids, that's wonderful. But and just going by what you said about like every about like most popular authors, their books having kids and endings, like yeah, I agree. Kids are a very personal choice, and kids are a very big commitment, right? So and I feel like happily ever afters can happen without children. It can happen with just the couple getting married, or even just staying to be together for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I try to subvert that because in most of my works in progress and like this current one, it's a human and a merman romance. I make it so it's physically impossible for them to have biological children, even though there
Mm-hmm.
are children in their lives. Like both of them have nieces and nephews, but they don't have children of their
Yeah.
own, and they don't want children of their own. And then also my human couples tend to just choose to stay child free, even though again they may have children around them. And I think there's absolutely
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And see, I understand that some people don't get it. Like, there are some women who don't have issues or have never been to the point where they don't want kids. But once there are some of us, especially those of us who can't.
Right.
Um, it can be painful, and not even just that, but like, I worked with kids when I was younger, and being the child of a divorced set of parents where I had to take care of my younger
Hmm.
siblings. Even if I could have my own, it would not be within the first 10 years of my own marriage, just
Right.
because um the first 7 are typically the hardest. And once you
Hmm.
get past the first 7 and you finally get into, a well decade of knowing your person, you have an established bond. Not to say that if you dated before, but the thing that it doesn't matter, but there's a difference between dating someone and living with them and then being married or cohabitating with them.
Yes.
Once you're cohabitating with someone, you get to know them on a different, more intimate level that is not the same. Um, and it's just a little bit trickier to navigate when you're in those positions and trying to establish to others that you don't want children, but the most popular things that you're reading end with children. And they're like,
Right.
well, I felt like I've seen this. And if that's not what you want, then you just shouldn't read it. And it's like, that's not quite what we mean by we don't want to read it, you know? we're happy. Most people are happy to support you in your choice. We just don't want to be questioned in ours. And sometimes it's one of those who do have kids don't necessarily realize that you don't have to be happy to have kids. Like, you don't have to have kids to be happy. Those things are not, intertwined like that. Like, I am perfectly happy where I am without children. So,
Yeah, and like I said, it's all a personal choice, right? I had a friend who also married quite young. She married when she was 24, and I believe she had her first child when she was 28 or 29. But it was also her choice and her husband's choice to wait until they were a little bit older and they had been together for a while, right? So,
yeah.
I know even when I was younger, I'm in my late 30s now, but even when I was younger, people used to be like, "Do you want kids?" I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, "I know I like kids." I want to be around them, but do I want my own? I don't know. I'm not super duper healthy myself. So I don't know
Yeah.
about that. And,
Well, and it's one of those, like, kids are a ball to be around.
Yeah.
But I'm not responsible for this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know so I have a little brother. In a very similar situation to you. My parents were divorced. I pretty much grew up raising my little brother, who I love him to death. He is like my oldest best friend, and he wants kids. I'm like, that is super. I'm like, I want you to have kids. I want you to give me nieces and nephews that I can play with and, take care of them, and then give them back to you and your wife at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I have a dog now, and he's pretty much like a kid.
Yep. 100%.
Very high maintenance.
But look, at those of us who don't have kids, we end up having some sort of high maintenance dogs or animals we have to take care of.
Yeah, no, my dog's a Pekingese. I mean, I might open a door later, see if he comes in, but I know he was lurking outside a little bit. He's very small. He has a flat little face, and he's very, very furry, so he needs to be brushed every day. He needs this like little wrinkle between his nose and his eyes cleaned every day. He needs to be brushed, conditioned, washed, make sure make sure he walks. When he walks, he tracks dirt and twigs and leaves back to the house. We have to take that all off of him. So he's a very high maintenance little critter. That's what I call him.
Yeah. My Belgian is high maintenance, and the thing with Belgians is like, there are Belgian Malinois, and then there are German Shepherds, and German Shepherds are the laid back version. Belgians were originally bred to be working dogs. And those are the breed that most police officers use when they train canines, is a Belgian, because they're high maintenance. They require work every single day. My poor Belgian was abused before he was trained. So now he holds his training still pretty well, but he takes a little bit of manipulating in order to get him to fall back into that training. And he has arthritis now because of it. Like, he's already to the point, he's 6. He's not even fully out of toddler mode, essentially. And he has torn his CCL, which is human equivalent ACL. Yeah. And has arthritis. So we've had to nurse him through that tear to get it to repair. And then now he's on monthly medication so that he can get some ease of his joints for that arthritis. And so I'm just like, high maintenance animals in general are about accurate for.
Exactly. I mean, he's very, very lucky to have you as his guardian. Your husband. He's very well. He seems like he's very well taken care of. He seems like such a sweet boy. I'm like, I know I'm far away in a different state, but I want to just give him like little scritches on his head.
Yes, he was. Oh my gosh, he is one of those, like, he can feel whenever. He's an empath for sure. As a dog, he's an empath, and so he'll come in and just like lay his head on my thigh and just look at me, and I'm like, "Stop! You're gonna make me cry."
I love that. Oh my gosh, yeah, and that's what I love about cats and dogs is that when you're not feeling well, when they're sick, they just know and they'll come sit with you. So my current dog, he hurt his back a few years ago to the point where I'm not quite sure what happened. I think he had herniated disc or something. I'm not really sure what happened with his back, but his hind legs were not working, so he was pulling himself in his front legs. And then I would just see him, I would just cry. And I'm not a huge crier, but I would look at him, like, try to struggle. He was still trying to come up to me and snuggle with me. I'm just like, I just started crying, like, on him.
Yeah.
He's okay now. I'm giving him like doggy PT. I'm like, just give you some range of motion on your legs, and have you practice standing. He's better now. Now he's fine, but those few years were hard, and,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Okay,
made me
we
so
gotta
sad.
switch.
I'm sorry. Are you okay? I'm so
We gotta.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. We gotta switch topics now so we don't cry.
I'm like, no, my little baby. All right, I'm sorry. Go on.
Um.
It's a dog show.
Okay,
How are
switching
you?
topics. No tears. This
Yes.
is a happy day. Um. So tell me, you said it's a romantasy that you are debuting here soon. Do you read mostly romantasy, or do you just read anything you can get your hands on?
I've always loved this question because people tend to assume that I read only fantasy and romance, which I do. So those are still my two top, my two tops. And I see you have the Akotar series in your background. Very cool.
Yes.
I've only read the first one, but I need to get on on the other books in the series.
This top part of my
Uh-huh.
shelf, I'm sorry, my listeners, because you cannot see this, but every time I get on an interview with someone, all they see is this top part of my shelf. In the very first bookshelf up on the very top, the ones that are sitting over here in the weird stack, this is a cozy mystery.
Oh,
And
okay.
then we have contemporary romance. And then we have, I don't even know what genre those are in because I just bought them because they were thick. It's
I'm trying to see the
The
titles.
Priory of the Orange Tree
I've heard of
and
that.
The Fallen Day. I think they're fantasy. I think.
Well, from what I've heard of
But
them, I
then
think
you
they're
have all of SJM as her romantasy. So I'm like, this is the very interesting that this is all you get from that top shelf because that's typically all they see. And then you've got more like romantasy. This is Stephanie Garber's. This is the Once Upon a Broken Heart, and then Chloe Gong,
uh-huh.
Violent Delights, and Foul Hearts Huntsman, and then this is Carrie Maniscalco with the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy.
Very cool. Yeah, I've read. I have not read Stephanie Garber's Once Upon a Broken Heart. I have read her entire Caraval series though. There's something about like a magical circus that I just love. I love it. I also love Aaron Morgenstern's The Night Circus.
I'm so torn because I read Once Upon a Broken Heart, just the one book,
hmm
and finished it. And then I was like, I heard you were supposed to read Caraval first. So I went to start reading Caraval and then never finished it. The first book, nor finished the series. And I told myself, I was like, what we're not going to do is we're not going to finish the Once Upon a Broken Heart series and then return back to Caraval and read it because they're supposed to be read the other way around so that everything connects. But at this point, I'm going to have to because I just cannot get into the Caraval. I cannot.
And that's okay. Like I said, so again, I've never read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. It is on my TBR. I feel like it's been my TBR for a year or two, and I need to just get back into it. But I'm also a mood reader, so I'm like whatever the mood strikes me. I mean, I'm like, I'll pick a book from my TBR. I'll read this book and I'll review it. I don't. So from what I've heard, I don't think you need to have read Caraval because it's not a direct sequel, unless I'm mistaken. But I think it's a spin-off, I believe.
I think
I could be wrong.
if I remember correctly, Caraval is supposed to have like some of the same characters that were in the Once Upon a Broken Heart. I think like it's the origin stories of the place, the setting.
Right.
Is supposed to be what Caraval is, but I don't know for sure if that's. I think Caraval is like the origin stories, and you can either read it either way. But my mind likes to have things in chronological order,
Yes.
so then I feel like I really messed up because I did not read Caraval first.
And I will do the same. I am the same with chronological order. I cannot write if it's not in chronological order. I know some authors, and I love that for them. They're like I just write the ending first, or write the middle first. I'm like I can't do that. I feel like my brain will short circuit if I do that. I'm like I need to go from chapter one all the way down, one by one by one. I mean, there might be a scene I really want to write later, but I'm like I just can't do it. I can't make myself do it.
Which is crazy because I want to know how you feel about some of my authors I've spoken to said they write in pieces and then have to go back and put it all together later. Like they don't necessarily start with a specific, they just start with whatever comes to them first or whatever comes to them at the time and they go back and put it in order.
So I actually do the same, and I know that goes against what I just said. I know. So I'm a quilter, and I never heard of this term until someone made a mention to me on TikTok. Like, wow, you're a quilter. And at first I thought she said I was a quitter. I'm like, I'm a quitter. It's not very nice. But then I look close. I'm like, oh,
What?
it's an L, not a T. So yeah, so when I plot stories, right, things come to me in pieces. It comes to me in scenes. I'm like, oh, I want to do this scene. I want to do this scene. I want to do this scene, and then I put it all in a Word document or my phone's notepad. It just becomes a gigantic
Mm-hmm.
block of text, and it terrifies me to look at it
Mm-hmm.
later, try to decipher. I'm like, what is that? What did I do? Because I'll just go, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I have this idea for a scene, and then I'll just write another block of text, and then I wake up, I'm like, I don't know what this is. But yeah, so then I take all those scenes. When I feel like I've had enough, then I put them all together in in a, I guess, in order, in an outline, and then I actually start
Mm-hmm.
writing it from there.
Okay.
But yeah, I
That makes
understand what they're
sense.
saying. But yeah, let's go back to
Yeah.
what you asked me about reading. So I read a little bit about. I realized we went off on a tangent, but that's okay. That's how my conversations with friends normally go. I'm
Yeah.
like, what were we talking about like an hour ago? And my friend's like, I don't know. You went off topic. Like, I know. I do that a lot. Uh,
Me too.
so yeah, so I do like fantasy and romance. They are my two top genres. I
Mm-hmm.
also really love thrillers. So I love, in particular, I love psychological thrillers. I love like Lucinda Berry. I love
Okay.
Mika Kent. I love Margot Hunt. I love like Mark Edwards. I love those four are probably my auto buys. I
Mm-hmm.
also enjoy some like light sci-fi and like very light horror. Even though I like
Mm-hmm.
horror movies and I go to Halloween events, to haunted houses, I don't like reading about it for some reason. I don't know why, but I do like some light horror
Mm.
and
See,
and also like contemporary.
I'm the flip. I can read about it, but I can't attend it in person when it comes to horror. Like I can't watch movies.
Yeah.
I can't go to the haunted houses. Like I like Halloween, but I'm like the spooky version of Halloween. Like I'm actually wearing a Halloween shirt.
Oh, but there's some horrors and it's I love it. It's so cute. It's so sparkly.
So for the people who are listening, my shirt is purple and it says there are some horrors, HORRORS, in this house. And it's ghosts with very plump behinds and stars around it.
I did not see their
Yeah,
booties. I
for
just
the
saw the ghost and the
description.
stars. I'm like, that's really cute. Now I see their booties. I'm like, that's even cuter.
Yes, I got one of my friends. One of my friends was like, if you can find the file, like the downloadable file or like a purchasable file, I can put it on my Cricut and make it into a shirt for you. And so I sent her the link, and I was like, you just let me know if you need me to buy it, or I was like, put it into the price of the shirt, whatever you need. So I got this one and then an SJM shirt too.
Nice.
So yeah.
Is it based on like a particular book or just like her world in general?
Technically, it's based off of Akatar. It's the wings with ataraxia, and then the mountain outline with the stars. But I just say it's hers because that fits well
That she sounds very
in
pretty.
general.
That
Yeah,
shirt.
it's nice. This one's my favorite though. It's got the.
And it's adorable.
It's literally so
We're gonna
cute.
call them the booty ghosts. That's what we're gonna call them.
I just love that there's one in the splits on top of the part that says "in this house."
It's like looking backwards, like, yeah,
Like
that's right.
looking back at it. Yeah.
See how you like that? Like, okay, I'll take it. That's
That's
fine.
right.
That's so cute.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, I did not
I'll
get
have to
into.
post a picture of
Oh,
it
I'm sorry.
somewhere.
What's that?
No, you're good. I just said I'll have to post a picture of it somewhere so everybody can see it.
I think you should. Please let me know what you do because I will upvote like the crap out of it. It's so cute.
It's gonna go on my threads.
I'm like, please look. I'm like, please look at this amazing T-shirt that Natalie wore when we recorded her podcast. Like, please love it as much as I do, and as much as she does. That's what I would say. Um, yeah, it's funny because I did not get into horror. I mean, I've always liked horror movies, but I've always been too scared to go to haunted houses. My brother, on the flip
Yeah.
side, he loves this, so him and I do a trip every year, just the two of us. And it was actually after I got out of a very abusive relationship, and that I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm gonna. And then at that point, my brother said, "You want to come to Halloween Horror Nights with me in Orlando? It'll be really fun." I'm like, I'm terrified of haunted houses. I'm terrified of scare actors coming up to me and getting in my face, or chasing
Hmm.
me. It was just the worst. I hated when they chase me. Like I start running
Yeah.
and screaming, and my brother just films me and laughs. Like, thanks a lot. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I don't. I'm like, I've kind of been through like a real life, House of Horrors already. So I'm like, let me just
Mhm.
let me try it out. And I started going a few years ago, and I kind of had to have a drink before I did that, so I didn't like really
Yeah.
freak out. And now I've been going every year, but like I said, reading it for some reason is a whole different ballgame for me.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like it may give it may be partially why, like, depending on the way you read, like when you read, depending on how your brain functions, like if you just see the words or if you actually like get pictures or if you get pieces, that kind of thing. Everybody, when they read differently, there are some people who actually see pictures. I am one of them.
Yay, me too.
Hello, I see pictures in my brain. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's like a movie in there. Okay,
Hmm.
I am actually seeing it happen like a movie. But
The best kind.
I know, it's so cool. But for those of them that can't, I feel like that would be probably the factor into like those people probably don't like reading as much. And if they do, it's like like poor Alex Astor, she's getting a movie deal, and I just saw her TikTok the other day. She was like, when you're not the kind of person who sees pictures when you read, so you have no idea what your ideal fan cast is. And I was like, I feel so bad for you.
So I can just jump off of that and I say when I read, I can see it as a movie. When I write, I can't. It is the weirdest thing. Like I can see the pictures of the setting, but I have no clue what my
Okay.
characters look like. Right? So when I commission character art for the first time of like my main character and the merman, they're like, "Do you have any fan cast?" I'm like, "No." I have no idea.
No.
I mean, I don't know what they look like. I mean, now I found some fan casts that would fit them, but it took me a while to. I'm like, okay, this is what I think they look like, but I don't have a good picture in
Yeah.
my head of what of their faces, even of their body type. And like I can't visualize my own characters, but I can visualize everybody else's, which is when I think about it, strange. It's
Hmm.
strange. Yeah.
Especially when you look at the different ways that people picture things, because like we know if you're reading it, you're going to picture it one way, and I'm probably going to picture it a different way. Because if you've seen any of the memes based off SJM's experience with Feyre and Akatar, you know that some people pictured like an actual like when we're talking about the Midengarn worm, some people pictured like the SpongeBob worm. And me, I'm like, this thing is just like a normal worm, but like rows of thousands of teeth and like, massively bigger. So like it looks like dirt and it is like got horns sticking out of the side. That's my brain was like that. Just like when they talk about Rhysand's beast. Some people are thinking like, the pictures of the baby dragons from How to Train Your Dragon after Toothless has kids. Some people pictured that. And then there are others where it's like the fan art where he's like a mountain tall and got these massive wings and he looks kind of like a dragon from
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
I
And
just
I'm like, could you imagine?
I just think it's funny how people visualize the SpongeBob and How to Train Your because they're cute. I mean, they're really cute. I don't think they fit in her
They're
world,
really
but they're
cute.
cute.
No, yeah.
Little baby dragon going up to.
Because I mean, like,
Oh my god, that's great. That is great.
yeah, I'm just like that. This is what you thought of. Like, it's hilarious. And now that like you've read it and you've probably seen other stuff, you probably think differently. Like if you were to go back and read it, but they just cracked me up that that's where they started because they were like, "This is what I thought of," and I was like, mm.
Yeah, so that's what.
I don't think that's what she meant.
Yeah, so I feel like that's why typically when the authors share their fan art or their I guess commission artwork, sometimes I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I can see your character, but I don't know who they are. I like to go back later after I've read their books and look at their character art again. Like, did they match what I thought of in my head? Although I know it's a little
Mhm.
hard now because people share their character commission art all the time, which they should. There's so many amazing artists out there, But I like to read the book and then get a picture and then go back to the art. I'm like, do they match what I saw? Sometimes it's yes, mostly it's no.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, see, like after Fourth Wing, a lot of people have um Fourth Wing was really hard for me when I started looking at fan casts and stuff after I finally read it because it got almost spoiled for me before I read it. And then after I went to read it, I came back and I was like, okay, these fan casts don't match anything with like what I thought because they have him like shaded as far as skin tone as like a European or Italian descent. So he's
okay.
got the ivory complexion that's really, it's not fair, but it's just like very soft and like olives would match that kind of idea. But as me, I didn't picture him. I'm going to be completely honest. I pictured him in like a light skinned African American. So it was very interesting for me to be like, that's what you guys got from that? When she said like dark skinned, I thought she meant like the not necessarily like a Hispanic, but like a almost like Bahamas, like very islander, not necessarily African American or African, but just that for like very
Right.
island, very um not not Italian. I was just so confused. I was like, where did you get this?
Yeah, you look at that, you read a character description, and you're like, huh. Which is how I feel too. Sometimes when books are adapted into movies, I'm like, I'm not gonna watch the movie or the
Mm-hmm.
show until I read the book first.
I am so scared to watch It Ends With Us.
I have not read that. I need to read that. I know there is that going to be is it a TV show or a movie?
They
A
made it
movie.
into a
Okay.
movie.
I know Blake Lively is in it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, yeah.
Yeah.
I, I feel like a lot of times the movie doesn't do the book justice, and I
Yeah.
wanted to. And
I
same with
agree.
Game of Thrones too. I'm like, I read the first book, I read the second, and then when I found out he had it written past like book five, I'm like, I'm not reading this anymore because I don't like to read complete
Yeah.
series. I generally am bad with cliffhangers. So I'm like, I need to know there's another book waiting for me in case I want to read it, because then I will just be very upset. So I'm like, that's why I
Mm-hmm.
stopped. But then I made myself watch the rest of the show. I'm like, well, okay, I'm kind of glad I read the book first. And then I was that annoying person sitting there telling my family, I'm like, okay, well, this is Daenerys. She's from House Targaryen, and then this is Viserys, her brother, and it's the Molten Crown. That was in the book, and this was not in the book, and that was in the book. And my family was just like, can you please stop and just let us watch it in peace? I'm like that in movies too. My mom's like, can you just stop? I know I have to
Accurate.
compare.
And there's okay, so they're the version of like reading the books versus watching the movies. But when you look at something like Marvel Comics versus Marvel movies and see how dramatized things get and how much they leave out,
Hmm.
first of all, it's kind of hard to come around to the original comics, anyways. But there are a lot of connections that are made in like you piece the story together faster in the comics
Right.
because certain carries appear sooner. Certain characters appear sooner. Like a lot of people had no idea what was happening when you get to the end credits
Exactly.
of Avengers. Like the very first end credits, you're like, I have no idea who this dude is. But like if you were paying attention, like you really had to like go back through and watch all the extra stuff trying to watch Marvel Universe in order with someone who does not understand that you have to pay attention to every minute detail in the movie and you have to watch it a couple times over in order to get all of the pieces is so difficult. Because I grew up in a Marvel household. So we watched the movies. We connected the dots. We had the conversations. But I have a husband who grew up playing video games and not watching Marvel. So whenever I tried to explain to him, all right, you said you wanted to watch the Marvel U. Let's start with the Marvel U. We're going to watch it in the order they recommend according to Disney Plus, and we're going to get started. We watched the first one, and he's like, oh, I've seen that. I'm like, okay, you might want to watch it again. I'm like, if we're watching this in order, you might want to watch it again because you probably forgot something. And there are probably end credits you missed. Just to go back through all of that. And for him to be like, wasn't Captain Marvel one of the last ones created in the past few years? Why is it so early in the universe? And I'm like, watch it. And then watch the end credits and see why. And he's just not. I'm just like, all right, I cannot with you.
Well, at least you tried, right? Like, you tried. I also did not grow up in a Marvel household. My family is also like me and my brother. We grew up with video games. But I do like Marvel. I love the Marvel movies. I love watching them. I love, getting to like the whole like, action aspect, seeing all the characters. And I have definitely gone down the Marvel rabbit hole. Like going to the end credit, I'm like, who is that? Like, what are they talking about? Especially when it's 2 end credits, and I'm like, I'm so confused. So I would start Googling, who is this? And then the whole Wikipedia page comes up. I go down that rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I've done that with so many characters after seeing the end credits and not knowing what was going on. I'm like, it bugs me to not know what's going on. I'm like, I need to know what this is and what is happening and who this character is. I just started Googling.
I did the same thing. I had to do the same thing with Suzanne Collins for, the Hunger Games, because after I finally watched the second part of Mockingjay, I went back and I read the books. I started watching the movies. I'm 24, so I started watching the movies before I could actually read the books in a manner. And really understand, truly. Like, I could have read them, but I would not have truly understood the connections that were made. But I got to the end of Mockingjay in the book, and I was like, this is not what happened. I was like, these are not the same. So then I'm like going back trying to rewatch the movies, and I'm like, they left out so much.
And I feel like they have to. And I feel like in a way, I'm like, I kind of feel like, especially with a lot of book worlds, I'm like, I feel like they have to, because I'm like, otherwise, like, and I feel like it's almost impossible to fit 400, 500 pages into a 2-hour movie. Unless it's like really long.
Yeah.
The same way they split the last movie of Twilight and Harry Potter into 2 movies. Because it was just because those books were humongous. I did not read either of the books. I've seen them and I've seen how big they were. I'm like, I can see why they split it up. And there
are other pieces of the Twilight that they didn't add into the movie. Like, there's a additional book.
Oh, okay.
Actually, there's an additional book and an additional novella. There's The Secret Life of Bree Tanner.
Okay.
It's like a little connected novella style. And then there's
I think I've heard of that one. Yeah.
There's another book. It's like it's got a grapefruit on it, and it says like Sun Moon or something.
Oh, is it the one from Edward's point of view? I think so. I think it's Midnight Sun. I mean, was that ever released?
Yes.
I know Stephanie Meyer was working on it. I don't know if she ever actually released it or published it. Okay, so you're Googling it.
No, there's more than I Googled it. Okay, so we gotta have the answers. Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and then Breaking Dawn. And then there's Life and Death, Midnight Sun, and The Secret Life of Bree Tanner.
Okay, Life and Death I did not hear about.
Or The Short Life of Bree Tanner, or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember living in Seattle at the time when Twilight got really big. And because it was set in Forks, Washington, it was huge in Seattle. And I'm like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when I got sucked into the craze a little bit. Like I said, I never did read the books. I did watch the movies though.
It's The Short Second
Bree
Life of Bree
Tanner.
Tanner.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. So it says read them Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn, The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner, and then Life and Death. And then I would imagine you would read Midnight Sun after.
Okay.
Because it says, obviously the regulars, and then the short short second life of Bree Tanner follows events from Eclipse from a different perspective. And then Life and
Oh,
Death is Twilight reimagined.
that sounds interesting, actually.
But the thing is you can only they have the white box set, which are really pretty. First of all, I'm obsessed.
I'm gonna Google
But
this while you're.
the white box set does not have Midnight Sun in it.
Oh, that is really pretty.
Or Life or Death. Life and Death.
I'm on Amazon right now, so I'm curious. Yeah, okay, so it's got all 4 books and the short second life of Bree Tanner, but not the other ones. Okay. That's actually really pretty.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And the one thing Twilight did have was beautiful covers. Like, it's just so simple, but it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we all love
Yeah.
pretty covers.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just got I got some book mail. I'm in a Discord and we do Fairy Fridays every Friday, which is so much fun. And there are so many of us and we like to go in and just kind of spoil one another. And
I love that so
I just
much.
got my latest I just got my latest Fairy Friday gift yesterday, and the book is called The Monarchs.
Have I really heard of that?
Hold on, let me grab
Sure,
it.
no problem. I'm very curious.
I'm dropping things.
I do that all the time.
So this is the book I got. It's The
How
Monarchs. It literally
beautiful.
has monarch butterflies,
How beautiful.
and it's all the way through the back.
And
It's
glossy.
the
I
sequel
love it.
to The Ravens, and The Ravens has ravens on the front.
I do love it because I do. It's something about like really simple yet like elegant covers just like speaks to me. I love like covers with a lot going on in them, especially when I'm reading them. Reading the book, I'm like, oh, I could
Yeah.
take this on now. I know what this means on a cover. This little symbolism they have that in a cover. I love covers like that. But I especially love covers like
Which you would
what you
think
showed me. So pretty.
that these have something to do with ravens or monarchs.
But it's not.
Nope. Nope. This is well, yes and no. It's about a sorority, Kappa Rho Nu, which are called the Ravens.
Oh, I see.
But
Okay.
the thing is like the basis of the story is one of their new pledges figures out that they're witches, or they get found out that they're witches.
I
haven't read it yet, but I'm going to because I just got the sequel.
That is really fun. I have to take a look at that after. I'll have to write down here. I'm very curious. So it's got the Monarchs and the Ravens. Nice.
Okay, so tell me about the last book that you read. I know you've been in kind of writer mode, getting ready for debut.
So what was the last book I read? So I'm currently reading a sapphic pirate and siren romance novel, adventure novel. It's actually part 2 in a duology, and it's called A Chorus of Ashes and Shadows by Melissa Caribbean. And it's kind of a spin-off of book. It's kind of like a part two of the series. But the first book is called A Song of Silver and Gold, and it's pretty much about so it's more like a sapphic Little Mermaid retelling, which I really enjoy. I like the first book a lot. I kept the second book on my TBR for too long. I'm getting back into it now, and I love seeing how the characters come together. So you have a siren kingdom, you have a sea witch, you have and then you have like a ship full of pirates with a female pirate captain, and it's just like so much adventure. There's a little romance in it, but it's mostly like adventure, and it's a lot of fun. It's very action packed. I'm getting through it pretty quickly. Probably what I read before this, though. You know what? I'm gonna check my Goodreads really quick. That's why I have it.
Yeah,
I always forget like what books I actually read. Hold on. So
for sure.
Oh, so the last book I read, yes, that was what it was. So it was actually not a fantasy or romance. It was a sci-fi horror called Ghost Station
Okay.
by S.A. Barnes. So
Hmm.
not super creepy, a little bit gory, not over the top, but I like books that are very eerie, right? You know, very like I want to
Hmm.
feel that sense of dread. I want to feel that eeriness. I want to feel like their fear, the trepidation of the characters. I don't really necessarily want
Yeah.
to see them getting torn limb to limb. I really don't. I know.
Yeah.
You know, but it's about, yeah, so it's about a space crew that, you know, they go into an abandoned space station and they have to kind of unravel the mystery of what happened there because the previous crew seems to just have left without a word. So that was very interesting to me. As
Oh,
also a big fan of Mass Effect, you know, the video game.
yeah.
So, you know, then that's, you know, something I like to read once in a blue moon. And then after that, I'm like, okay, that's enough of that. Let me get back into fantasy and romance now.
A good palate cleanser to give you something else to read.
Yeah, I do need that because I
I love
can't
that.
read like I can't read too much dark stuff in a row. It just makes me sad.
Yeah.
So then I'll pick up
Yeah.
like a
I'm the same way.
yeah, so I'll pick up like a rom com.
Except I can't do. Yeah, I'm like I read a lot of like dark romance, dark fantasy, and then I'll pick up like a cozy mystery or like a rom com to just kind of even me out. Luckily, I actually just recently had a rom com arc that fell into my lap at the
Oh,
perfect
fun!
time. I am on Daphne Elliott's permanent
Yay!
arc team, and she is amazing. First of all, who does not like a good lumberjack?
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
So her first series, her first, I don't know that they were actually her first lumberjack, but the first ones that I ran into is the Lovewell Lumberjack series, and it's about a family in the small town
hmm
of Lovewell, Maine,
hmm
and they're a logging family.
Okay.
So they own acres of land, and their dad was killed, and it was deemed an accident by the state, but or not just the state, but the state and the
Right.
local. But everybody was like, you know, it didn't seem like an accident. And it's three boys and a young woman. I mean, they're all grown, but the woman is, first of all, I love this. She was the last book, and she was hung up on it couldn't have been an accident because I'm the mechanic. I'm the head mechanic.
Okay.
It's my job to look over those trucks. Those trucks should have been, you know, A1. This shouldn't have happened. She finally gets like pieces of the truck back from the wreckage, and they figure out that the brakes have been tampered with. So it's her
Oh.
love
Uh-huh.
story to the rival family in town, the rival logging family in town, but at the same time, through the entire four books of the story, they're trying to figure out what's going on. So, like, one of the brothers figures out that their dad was looking into something in a certain section of the woods, and his story finishes, and then they go to the second brother, and he figures out that his dad had been writing in Canadian French
Okay.
because he found this certain section of the woods that had something weird going on in it, and his girlfriend ends up being followed by drug members, and then like drug cartel
Oh,
members
okay. Wow, the plot just thickened. Uh-huh.
from northern Canada, yeah, from northern Canada, and she ends up getting kidnapped, and then the other brother is like a like it all has overlapping. There is this like we're trying to figure out what happened to our dad because um like
Yeah.
some of us feel like it wasn't an accident, some of us feel like it was, and then at the very end in that last fourth book they figure out that it wasn't an accident and the brakes were sabotaged, and it was the head of the rival family's dad who was involved in drugs with the can't like some version of like the Canada mafia type thing, and he was trafficking through what they call the Golden Road, which is what the four main logging families
Yeah.
own. they all own a piece of it. So yeah. And then she started the second one, the second set of series, and it's so like the three brothers marry someone different, and the sister marries one of the brothers from the competing family, and then so their book is one at the very end, and then the rest of that family gets their books in this. So it's so connected. So connected. Like, you don't have to read them in order. They're all technically interconnected standalones, but in order to really get the overall arcing of like the kind of mystery and almost thrill behind the romance is to read them in order. It's
I need to, you know what, hold on. I mean, I just heard like logging family, lumberjacks. My family's gonna listen to this later and be like, I didn't know you were into lumberjacks. Well, I didn't either until just now. But wait, who's the author? Daphne.
Well, they also have shirtless wood chopping competitions and friendly family competitions for logging
That's
things.
so cute.
And most of the men have really filthy mouths.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
So if anybody wants to be convinced more.
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
The author is Daphne Elliot.
Elliot.
Elliot. Trying to find her at Goodreads.
Yes. Elliot.
Aha. Would you be mine? Would you marry? I love it. Would you marry? It's so cute.
Yes. They're wood puns. So you've got would you be mine? Would you rather? Would you marry me? And would riddance. And then the new series
Looking at the
that
titles.
connects again. I'm gonna go to her page real quick because she just posted about it. The latest one is Pain in the Axe.
I saw that. I'm like, that is so cute. I love the puns. I love titles with puns in it.
Yes, she's great. Okay, so let's see. She just sent it to us not too long ago. Or she posted it.
Yeah.
Oh, Caught in the Axe.
So you've got in the Axe.
Caught in the Axe.
Wait, I did.
Pain in the Axe.
I see wood riddance. That is adorable.
She's all about the puns.
I love, as I said, I love punny titles. I sometimes wish I was witty enough and quick enough to think of a punny title, but I have not thought of a good one just yet.
Yes, she's good. Her and a few of her friends came up with the Mother series. So one's like, hers is Mother Hater, another one is Mother Maker, another one is Mother Pucker, and then there's a Mother Hater. Yeah, so her and her friends did the Mother series. Their mom comes.
Oh my god, that's actually really, really smart.
It was so smart. So like, again, we're back to the don't read them situation but they're all moms. That's what it's based off of, is single moms finding their people. But I thought it was really interesting that she's all about a punny title.
I love it. Sometimes it takes me a while to get. I'm like, oh yeah, like, oh, that is so smart. Like, why didn't I think of something like that?
Yes, yeah. I love stuff like that, especially when it's like really fitting. Just so throughout the entire series and moving in so far, what I've read of the first two books of the next series, there is a moose in town who's become the main character of all the stories. His name is Clive.
A moose, like an animal moose?
Yes, like an animal. And Clive is known for being very sassy. He has had tampons thrown at him. He has interrupted sexy time. He has interrupted a wedding.
Oh my
He has
god, this is great.
barricaded a road. He has he's also known for like just walking around town and destroying people's things. Just walk through the center. Yeah, he is his own. He's a
I'm
character.
literally just like, and I visualizing this as you're saying it, and I'm just cracking up in my head. A moose.
Yep,
That's
yep.
great.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is like, I mean, unfortunately, in real life, moose are not docile animals. Like they are aggressive, but she has taken this character that, I mean, it's a bull moose, so it's a male, and it's got some aggressive tendencies in the story, but she doesn't make it overly aggressive. But you like it's got scars on one of its hind legs, so you can tell like it's been through something. And she takes this grumpy, like just seemingly almost always irritated and could give an F less type character, and essentially like those of us who arc all of her stories are like, we need more. So when I met her at a signing one day, she had a little stuffed moose
So
with
cute.
her, and we took pictures with the moose because he is like so central. She is getting ready when she makes merch. They like to do like stickers with the moose on it, coffee cups with the moose on. Yeah, I mean, just the whole nine.
Look, I'm just saying, it's like you never know when you'll have a breakout character who people will love.
Yeah,
I feel like there's some authors you can write like just like a character just out of the blue, and then people just fall in love with that character. Like a moose. I would fall in love with a moose. You know, like the moose character like that. Not like that, but I would fall in love with the moose character like that. Like, hold on, let me rephrase that for the audience. They'll be like, what did she say? Like, oh, anyway, it's Sunday. What can I say? But yes, no, I love like sassy animal characters.
Me too.
I just love animals in
I
general.
feel like that has to do with Disney.
Oh,
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like that has to do with
because these make
Disney.
such cute animals. Like, Ariel has Flounder, Pocahontas has Miko, right?
Yes.
Also there Moana has Hey Hey and and Pua.
Hey Hey. Oh my god.
Hey, he cracks me up.
Hey Hey is probably my favorite. I mean, obviously Pascal is super cute. I mean, he changes colors and I mean, I'm all for it. But Hey Hey and Mushu,
Oh, Mushu's amazing.
the epitome of like sassy energy and just, I mean, they literally did A1 with these side characters.
I think it's amazing, and I'll be honest, I was actually very upset that they did not put Mushu in the live action Mulan. And my mom and I were just like
Yeah.
complaining about it during a car. Well, my mom was like, "How could there be a Mulan without Mushu?" She's like, "Mushu made that movie." She's like, "We need more Mushu." I said, "I agree.
He
I
really
agree."
did. He really, yeah. It was just yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Pua and I love the little cricket, but I feel like there's always one character that is just like um, the docile, and then you've got the like extremely like sassy kind of situation. Like if you're looking at Lilo and Stitch, obviously you would think that like Lonnie is one of the side characters, but she's not.
Right.
It's the two aliens that are hunting
So
Stitch.
cute.
And you've got one you've got the one that likes to wear the wigs and is just like
Oh my god, my brother and I love Lilo and Stitch. So when we do Disney, so we tend to do one
he's
Disney
so
cruise
cute.
a year, my family, because we love Disney, and and then they let you
Yes.
watch free Disney movies on in the stateroom all the time. So yeah, I think we were watching Lilo and Stitch recently. I'm like, I did not remember how funny these characters were.
Yep. And Timon and Pumbaa, and I'm just yeah. Needless to say, side characters are
Yeah,
important in story.
exactly.
So important.
Yeah, like it's not just about the main
Especially when
characters.
it comes down to like yes, yeah, yeah. Because like the main characters are great, but I feel like there, I feel like some people would be like, what does it matter if the side characters, um, have like this overly sassy or say certain things? Like you're just adding nonsense, essentially like filler. It could be said, and to the argument, well, it's like some of those things make the story. Some of those things are why people come back.
Yeah.
Because, like your mom said, Mushu made that movie. He was the reason a lot of people wanted to continue. And it wasn't just about her being able to overcome being in a man's role and trying to, provide for her family in a way. But it was also, about having someone who is that sassy friend that pushes you to do your best.
And I feel like that could be said for real life as well. And my friend Jenny, I know she'll probably be listening to this at some point. But she knows. She is my sassy friend that pushed me to be better. Like if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have turned my mindset around. Right. So because growing up, I struggled with codependency for a long time and low self-esteem, and then I met her, and then she was just flat out like, "What is wrong with you?" She's like, "You have a great job." She's like, "You wrote a book." She's like, "You're beautiful." She's like, "What is wrong with you? Why can't you?" She's like, "You need to think differently." And she was just like very blunt, very to the point. And I think at that point when it hit me, I'm like, "Oh yeah." So we I feel like we all need a sassy person in our lives who will push us. Right.
They're important. Okay. The last few questions, one of them being, so you said you did some ARC reading. What did your process as far as getting ready to do your debut? What were your deciding factors in, as far as doing an ARC team, doing maybe alphas or betas, or having a street team, that kind of thing, especially with how much piracy is happening nowadays? Like, what were your deciding factors on yes, I need this, or no, maybe not this essential piece?
Well, so I spoke to my publisher as to what they wanted me to do in terms of an ARC team. So I think they're going to submit to NetGalley and Book Sirens on their end, and they're like, "But you do your own ARC team in the meantime." I said, "Okay, that's fine." I kind of went with them. I'm like, "What kind of criteria do you want me to look for?" And they had told me, they said, just accept. She's like, this is your debut. We want a lot of early reviewers, as many as possible. I said, "Okay, I understand." And she said, just accept them if they are active reviewers, if they like romantasy, and as long as they're not an obvious spot. So what I did was, so that's pretty much what I did. But what I did was I also went through BookFunnel to distribute the ARCs. And what BookFunnel does is you can enable a watermark on it. And then also if you give a PDF, it will have their email address on the PDF on every page. Right. So I'm like, if it was ever pirated, then I would be able to see who pirated it. I know.
Be able to keep them off.
And I know you can't prevent piracy. I know it's going to happen. I know, especially when the book comes out, people will pirate it, and sometimes there's nothing you can do. You can try to stop it, but it takes so much time and so much effort that the only thing you can do is try to, watermark it and put their email addresses on it, especially for ARCs, because you're getting it for free. For a street team, I decided not to do that. I know a lot of authors did do it, and they're very successful with it. I decided not to do it just because of timing issues, and I'm like, I just don't have the time and energy to form one. And then but I may do it for book 2 or for future books. But for this one, I just chose to have an ARC team, and my ARC readers have been pretty good about promoting it. So I'm like, we'll leave it at that for now.
What about for reading? Do you obviously we know you probably sprinkle in reads when you can around writing, but do you like to do challenges? I know you said you're a mood reader, so does that affect how often you're interested in a challenge, or how do you approach that? Like doing the A to Z type thing?
I'll be honest, I've tried doing challenges before, and I never was able to do the only challenge I do is a Goodreads reading challenge. I'm like, because I still want to keep on reading, and that kind of, and I know having a goal to work toward helps me to focus. I'm like, okay, so I'm always reading something. Even if I'm going through really slowly, I'm always reading something actively. So I try to shoot for about 50 books a year, and then I have some periods where I read very slowly. I may get through only one book in a month, and sometimes I get through 4 books in a week. right? Depending on where I
Yeah.
am, what my responsibilities are. Recently, especially with with launch time, especially with the release date coming up, it's been a lot. So I'm trying to get my pre-order centers together, trying to get my PR boxes sent out and picked up, working my newsletters and making graphics, which just take me so long. Like it takes me forever to make a graphic, and I envy the authors and I respect them so much who make graphics all the time and they do it really well. And then it's also making videos. The last video
Mhm.
I made was of when I got my proof copy, and I held it. I had my camera in one hand. I was trying to take out my proof copy in the other, and my dog was there just like bothering me the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was gonna cut in and edit. I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it as this and show people like this is how I record stuff. I mean, I'm sure I'll get better at it eventually, but
It's the
for
life
now,
of,
that's what I've been doing. Um, so yes, the
yeah.
only challenge I do is the Goodreads reading challenge.
Okay. Do you have a plan? How many books? Can you tell us how many books you're gonna have for this series? Is it just gonna be a duo
So
or?
here's what I'm thinking. So I've talked to my publisher. I've written a book too. So that's the first draft is done, and then it outlines off my
Mhm.
publisher. They haven't contracted that just yet. I
Ooh.
think they want to see how book one does first, which is fine, because they contracted me
Mhm.
just for one book. So I think if it does well, they'll contract me for book two. They have the outline, so they're going to kind of go through the outline with me and kind of like give me some like brief developmental edits before getting the whole manuscript.
Mhm.
So that's done. So that's kind of going to be the end of, I guess, Angie and Kate, who are the main couple. It's going to end of their story. I am thinking of a potential book three, which would not be which would not be kind of like focus on this particular couple, but maybe like a different couple. Something possibly doing
Mhm.
that. I have kind of an idea of what I would like it to be. I don't have a story just yet, but I have the general premise.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes. I also have
Okay.
other works in progress. Like I have a contemporary romance I'm working on right now, which is a second chance romance. It's set in my hometown, my childhood home of Singapore.
Yay.
So I would love that to be a series of interconnected standalones eventually. And then I have another romantic based around Chinese mythology, which at some point I
Mhm.
will work on. I have a first draft written and it's awful. I need to revamp the entire thing. And every time I try to open it up, I'm like, not now, maybe later.
All right. Well, that's exciting news. I'm
Oh
really excited for
yeah,
you. There's a lot going on. Hopefully, they'll pick you up. They'll contact you for, as much as
hope
you're
so. Fingers
hoping
crossed.
for. We're just going to put that out there, bringing what we want to the table. But that's all I've got
For sure. Well,
for
Natalie, it was
today.
so nice to speak with you.
It was so much fun speaking with
I
you.
just love how our conversation went from writing to like reading to like lumberjack smut, then back to reading and back to writing. But yeah, like I said, this is how my friends and I conversations go in real life.
Yeah,
Right, so
absolutely. And that's one of the things that I really like, that having a normal conversation is what it is. I didn't want to ever like make this as if like we're putting on a facade of any kind. I wanted it to be genuine, so that any readers we bring, that you already know or that are new to you, really get a feel for you, and kind of an understanding of the conversation. Just actually feeling like we're just sitting here having like a cup of coffee or tea chatting.
yeah, and I feel like those are the best kind of podcasts to listen to too. I mean, I like the interview style podcasts. I do like to listen to those once in a while, but I do like to listen to two people talking. Like just like it's kind of like almost like listening in on
Mm.
like two friends speaking. I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
I'm
that's
getting the
that's like my
tea.
eavesdropping habit personified.
Yes.
Yes,
All right. Well, thank you
of
for
course, have a
joining
wonderful
me.
Sunday. Please do get head
You
scratch for me.
too.
He deserves it for being a good boy. All
I
right, you take
will.
care. All right,
To my
awesome. Thank you so
baby.
much again. Have a good
You
one.
too.
All right, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.